Let's take a look at the code for making a listener at the list name location. Then we'll see how to use the data that we get from the listener to update the UI. As you said, we're going to need to listen to the node list name, which is a child of your root URL. Now these two lines of code are basically equivalent. You can either pass in a full URL string specifying the exact node that you're interested in, or you can take a reference to any part of the database and then use the child method to sort of drill down to exactly the node that you're looking for. Again, these two are interchangeable, so use whichever that you like. Now that you have the exact location that you want to listen to, you attach a listener using the addValueEventListener method. This method takes a ValueEventListener object as a parameter. And just like with a click listener, you'll usually make a new anonymous subclass. ValueEventListeners have two methods that you need to override: onDataChange and onCanceled. OnDataChange is the method that's called whenever data at this reference location changes. I'll say it again, whenever it changes. This means that as long as we've got this listener attached, JP or myself or Walter or anyone else in the world could update a value here, and onDataChange would get called for all phones on which the app is installed. OnCanceled we'll talk about more later, but basically it's triggered if you either can't attach the listener to something or if the listener gets detached. Alright, so that's the general structure. Let's write some code. What I want to do is update this view here. This whole part of the app is controlled by the shopping list fragment class, so that's where we should start looking at the code. So here I am in the shopping list fragment class, and specifically I'm in the onCreateView method. Since your listeners update your UI, generally you want to put them in the onCreateView method or the onCreate method. So I'll start by making my Firebase reference object, and then I will create and attach a listener to that reference. Then in the onDataChange, for now, I'm just going to write a log statement. And I'm just going to make an error statement so that it's easy to see. Okay, let's try running this on my phone. So I know it's super small here, but I ran the app on my phone and it says the data changed. Then if I go to update the data, it says the data changed again. And whenever I do it, it'll say the data changes. You might be wondering why the listener triggers when the app opens. After all, nothing was getting updated. The reason is that when you first attach the listener, it automatically calls itself once. This is so that you'll have some initial data in the app, even if nothing is actively changing when you start the app. Alright, let's do more than just call a log message. If you look at the onDataChange method a little bit more closely, you'll see that you receive an object called a data snapshot. So what's a data snapshot? Okay, so you have your Firebase database, and you have a listener attached to, let's say, this node B here. When B or any of B's children nodes change, a data snapshot is taken. A data snapshot is a read-only copy of the Firebase state when the data gets changed. Once you have a data snapshot, just like a photographic snapshot, it won't change. And this snapshot that gets sent back includes the node that you were listening to as well as all of the children nodes. So that's the object that you have access to here. Now you can call a lot of different methods on a data snapshot, and here are some of them. For example, you can call a child method on a data snapshot the same as you would call a child method on a Firebase reference object. The data snapshot starts where you were listening to, and if I were to call child D, it would move the child down here. Then I could call something like the getValue method, and it would return the value at this location, which in this case is 1. I could also call the getKey method, which would return the key at this location, in this case D. The snapshot includes everything at the node you were listening to, and all of its children, but it doesn't include the parents of the node that you were listening to. So you can't transverse the whole tree. Okay, so I'm concealing some code that I put here that got me the shopping list name. And here, I set the text view that I'm interested to the list name that I just got here. This mTextView list name, I'm going to scroll down, was initialized here in initialize screen. Okay, but back to this code that's hidden from you. So I've got a data snapshot of the data. Which method that we just talked about do you think I need to call to be able to get the name of the list? Go ahead and change the code in your app so that it displays the list name, and then answer that question. Is it getKey, getValue, or child that you call?